Good morning. It is 10 o'clock Mountain Time, and it is time for Freemotion Fridays with Kate Quinn. So if you're out there, I would love to hear from you. How do we sound? How are we doing as far as our sound? I have had some recent challenges with that. My phone is on Do Not Disturb, and I am trying to make sure we have some really great sound. So, hi Patsy, good morning. I love being able to make friends and say hello to everybody. Hi Carla. Hi Jeannie. Okay, good. I'm glad that the sound is good. I don't know what has been going on, but I have been trying to change things up. So we were trying to hardwire into the internet, which meant that I had to use a camera that didn't have a viewfinder. So right now I'm using my phone, and honestly, that is the best. It is the easiest and it's the best. So I posted this and a lot of people saw it and liked it. It's not quilted. This is just some concepting. So right on the back, obviously, there's nothing, right? This is, oh, excuse me, hairball. A little water makes everything better. What we're going to do is just try to embellish this piece. There's no way that we can do this all in one go because we only have about 20 minutes is what we're trying to aim for in our Friday morning events. So what we'll do is we'll just pick a section at a time. These are all designs that were part of my Fun and Fancy collection, and what I want to do is show you how we can make this more exciting just by adding pieces in a little bit at a time, so that you can think about maybe how you'd want to do that. And I will tell you the truth, I don't normally do this kind of a thing right here, because what that would mean for me is I'd have to take all these markings off, and I don't want to do that. But if I do some marking and I'm doing kind of random things where I just want a concept, I really like this pen. This is the Boheen. It's a fat chalk pencil, and I only use white. And this comes off pretty easily. So let me just get my little scrap, right? This is my test piece, right? I can literally take this and I can just go like this and get these off, right? So you can see that that'll come off pretty easily. I might have to rub a little bit, but that way, if you want to change your mind, if you want to try something different, this is great for that. It's not a precise fine line, but it allows you to see kind of where you want to go and if that's working. And to be honest, I really thought these looked really cute. So let's talk about the plan of attack if we were going to do these curls on here. And we'll also add this center fill as the travel piece. So if we wanted to go, we could travel across the seam. Right in this area, I would likely want to use a straight edge. So what you'll see for the next couple of times while we're working on this piece is we'll be flipping back and forth with some base ruler work, because this is a really pretty line. I don't want to mess that up. And as I travel, if I keep it nice, then that's going to make the whole thing look better. So in order to keep this whole line doubled up, I would make a conscious decision to start here and travel to the center with my ruler. And then we'll put the fill in and travel. So that's what we'll do first. And then when we get over to this, we'll travel to the center, and we can do this entire fill just by free motion, and that'll bring us back on this side. So that's probably what we'll concentrate on today. Here's another tip that I like. If I wanted to, I think that this would be something that would be fine to do maybe in a different color. Like right now I've got this sea green rainbow thread right here that I'm using, but I could take a different color and put it in here, like a deeper blue or a contrast color or something like that, and that would make this be sort of the boundaries, and then you could color it in with a different color. Let's turn a little bit and let's get in a little closer. So I think we're kind of far out, so it'd be hard to see maybe. Let's see, here we go. Hi Cindy. All right, so we do want to see what the ruler foot is doing. So I do free motion with my ruler foot. So The reason I'm starting here is that way this entire line will be doubled up evenly, so you won't have single stitching here and then double everywhere else. That's just a little, you know, picky thing. You could start right there if you wanted to. So with my foot right here, notice that my ruler foot is up a little bit. This machine has a ready to stitch position, so if I tap the gas, the foot will descend. So if you have that, make sure that you're checking the ruler foot height when it's in the ready to stitch position all the way down. Now, let's grab one other tool that we need. So I'm gonna just stitch across. This is my spacing gauge right there. And what that'll do is make sure that I can travel right on the exact line. So I had to get in my same stitch line, and I'm gonna go right to the middle of the oval, just to get in there nice and clean. And right here, I'm gonna aim for this space. So right here, this is about 1/2 of an inch. Visually, I'm just marking that. So as I arc around, I'm gonna come back on the inside. So it's gonna look like this. I'll just do it on this one. I'm gonna arc out and this kind of right there, about that space. And I'm gonna put my curl in and I'm gonna come in on the inside like that. I could come on the outside, it's up to you. You decide. But we're gonna make all of these go the same direction. So here we go. Let's get closer. My foot is slipping around. I have a new chair mat and it makes my chair wander a little bit. So actively change directions, right? When we come into the point, we're making a really conscious decision to come back this way and start the curve. And that's what will help make that sharp point. And then here we'll just travel over again, checking, making sure that we're in the stitch line as much as possible to make it as clean as we can. And then I can even just hold with the ruler and I can just wing out and put my little curve in. And then let's keep moving. I think I'm going to let go of my ruler though, because I don't feel like I had as good of freedom. So get your hands in there where you can actually hold on to everything and be really comfortable. And then this way we can make a nice round curve. Back to the bottom and then just grab it. I usually keep it kind of close at hand so that I can move whenever I want to. I can free motion this, I can free motion on this line, but this boundary is really clean, so I kind of want to keep that. So I'm just going to keep using that straight edge. Okay, now we'll travel around. We're on the inside seam right here to get to this middle part right there. I always mention that because I'm one of those people, I'd be like stitching over here and I'm like, wait a minute, I wanted to go on that line, darn it, what happened? So here, I don't have to turn my sandwich if my sandwich is big and I don't want to turn it. Check it a few places with that spacing gauge, that'll kind of help. And I usually take a few stitches right at the beginning, just kind of slow. Make sure that I'm in that line instead of being wonky. So once I get to the center, let's turn it so you can see how we're going to travel on these lines. So these are kind of small. I want to put in a few of them. In order to do it, we have to travel out on the curve a little bit. And I'm doing it visually. So I'm going to just try to keep it nice and straight, move up. I'm looking through the foot. And I'm not too worried, you know, if it's not perfect. Okay, I'm just going to let it have fun. But try to keep a regular rhythm as much as possible. So as I'm moving, I'm trying not to wiggle my hands. I'm trying to keep my elbows straight so that I can, you know, just put the fill in kind of parallel. So again, with the contrasty color, you're going to see everything, right? You're going to see every little bobble. So if I wanted to, I could do this with black and I can still get the texture, but it's going to be a little bit more forgiving. So this is kind of easy right here. that we finish that up, and now we can just immediately fill all of these. And I like to, vary it up. I could do these all the same. So right here, let's figure out, how do we kind of figure out when we're on the curve, how many stitches or how far do we know to go? On the curve, it's a little bit tricky. You do need to do it visually because it changes on the curve. You can't just say, okay, that's 4 stitches. But you can maybe do like 3 or 4 stitches down the curvature like that. And that can help you. So travel up. So I'm looking at like 1/8, I think, or so on these. Could I do this with a ruler? Yes, of course I could. But then I'd have to reposition every time, and I would get tired. So they're not perfect. It's okay. They're all going to look great though. And see right here, this one maybe looks a little bit bigger than some of the others. You could come back in, and if that really bothered you, you could fill it in. So don't worry about all of that. So we showed you kind of side to side. Let's see if it's easier this way. You might get a different visibility this way, so I'll come out a couple of stitches. You may find that you have a little better control this way. So I'm working really hard not to round off these edges because I want them to sort of be straight. So when I'm traveling up at the top right here, I'm going to make sure I travel right in the seam a little bit until I can get that space. I'm not curving around at the top. Try to get a little bit more care so you get right in the line there. And you can go a little slower if you feel like you need time to see where the needle is. You can stop in between. You don't have to do it super fast. So I actually found it a little bit easier to control the motion when I was going this way. And that's because this is a more normal motion for us. We don't use this nearly as often. So that's just something for you to consider when you're working your own space. So obviously you have to develop those side-to-side muscles, right? So notice how I'm traveling out, right on the seam, not trying to round it out. Travel and then come straight down. Travel in your seam a little bit. We just have the last one to go, and you can see it looks fine. It looks totally fine. Do you want to see it? Right? We all want to look at it micro, right? But it's okay. It looks great. It's totally fun. And when we have another 5,000 stitches in this piece, it's going to look even better. All right, so let's come over just a few stitches so we can get this last one in. Try to use your fingertips and just go straight down. And if having a straight line is really important to you, I would use a ruler. If it isn't, then don't worry about it. Just do it like this. It's faster, it's easier. But if you really can't do a straight line and that bothers you, you can just make your lines wiggly on purpose. And then you just don't have to worry about it. You can make these a little bit more, just slightly curvier, and then kind of echo back. Then that kind of frees you up not to have everything be so precise. But because these all look the same, kind of, they're a little bit wonky, nobody's going to think anything of it. They're just going to be like, oh, that looks great. Okay, so let's see. You guys know I'm not perfect, right? You've seen everything. Oh, let's see. Got any questions so far? Let me see if I can just go through real quick. Anybody have any questions? You can throw them in there. I'm looking at the questions right now. I just found myself holding. Oh, that's so cool. I think we naturally do that. It's that mimicry thing. That was from Rita. She was saying that she kind of felt like she was like holding her body like mentally, doing it with me. That's cool. I love it. All right, let's see. Some weird thing on my screen that is preventing me from seeing everything here. All right, well, you guys are watching, so I'll just keep sewing. Yes, so Betty had a good question. She's like, are you spacing by intuition? Kind of, yes. What I'm doing is as I stitch up, if the needle is in a certain space, I'm trying to move a number of spaces over. It's about, if it was straight across, it would be about 3 stitches away from the previous line. But on the curve, you can't really count 3 because it's not exact. You may have to travel up further to get aligned. But what I'm doing is I'm kind of looking for that needle to be those 1/8 of an inch apart. And they're not regular. I mean, we're not a robot and we're not trying to be. So we're trying to just make them approximate. And sometimes, as I said, like, you know, I think there's one space over here where that catches my eye, whereas these do not. These look relatively even here. So I may come back in and put that in. When I evaluate whether I'm going to put that line back in on this side, I ask myself, is the correction going to be more distracting than the space? If it is, I won't. I'll leave it alone. Because sometimes, you know, you can try to come back in there and put something in there and then you just make it worse because you tighten this up and then all of a sudden the eye goes right there. So that's just something for you to evaluate, and we all have our own perfection quotients. So you essentially need to do what is your imperative, how perfect you want things to be or not. But as we show you, this is not about having a pro stitcher or a robot or an embroidery design. This is a person, and you just need to let yourself have fun. Don't worry too much about it. When we put a billion more stitches in here, it's all going to look fantastic. Okay, so right here, I was thinking I want to put something in there, and I was going to kind of echo this shape, so I'll probably do that with a ruler. But you can see right now we've done all the curves up there. We've traveled across, and now we can come down here and get to the middle, and now we have this path. And I want to show you just one thing. So we went these all this way. So we actually made an intentional decision here to make these go the other way. So that's just going to create some motion of different directions, which makes the eye kind of track around a little bit. So let's go ahead. We'll get down to the bottom. Make sure I'm in my stitch line when I start. And once I'm in, then I can just make some adjustments, keep me right in the line. I'm looking right inside this little cutout so that I can get right to this line. And then let me just show you real quick. With our spacing gauge, look at right there. When I put that on, it's nowhere close, right? So what that tells me is although I think I'm in the line, I'm not in the line. Trust your tools. They are not changing. So if they're telling you something isn't correct, that's probably true. Okay, we're in the middle. And now we can kind of set this off to the side. So let's go ahead. Let's do our little curlicue. So we said we'd go on the inside, which we did. And then we'll just keep this right here. So this has a little gap. I don't know if you can see that, but this oval's out not actually touching the line. So we're going to try to fill that in just a little bit to kind of fix that a little visually. So we'll make our line come up just a little bit right into that space to kind of fill it in. Nobody will notice. And then now we'll kind of get back to the other line. Always taking those first couple stitches, try and make sure that I'm in the line properly. Whenever you make your swirl, try not to stop in the middle because that makes kind of a weird flatness. So always try to go all the way. You can stop there and come back, but I think it's better if we just do the whole swirl all at one time. All right, here we go. So right here, since we've stitched all the way across on the other line, I would go ahead and I would finish the stitch line out. And that means that we'll get the same amount of double stitching on all sides, which is great. Now, let's talk about the next path real quick. So what do you think? Let's kind of move out a little bit so you can see what we did. Doesn't that look fun? Right? So we put a lot of energy in there and we're starting to create that bi-level texture. And my thought is I might do some pebbles in here. And the way that you would want to travel is I wouldn't do like this side and this side. You would do it either this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, like that. Because you could transit right here in this corner for each one of these. And then when you get here, you could come back this way. So that's about path development. That's what that is for. And that way we can fill this in. So the question now would be, is this design too dense for that? So as I'm looking at it, we'd have a lot of compression right here, and we have a ton of compression right here. So I think what we want to do maybe is not put something so dense right in here as I'm looking at that. So when you're working on it, as you add one piece, let's say that this was what I had planned, but it doesn't seem like it would work as well. Like I think that that would actually take away. So what I might do is put another little arc in here, travel across, and another little arc in there. And I think what that'll do is it gives a little space here, and then possibly you could fill in that space just with micro quilting. So this isn't something where you're committed to anything. You can step it out, or you can pull back, or you can change the design at a whim as much as you want to do. So let's see how we're doing on time. So we got about 22 minutes. Let's do one more. And so I think I'm not quite ready for this. This would be mostly ruler work, so I don't think we'll put that in there. Let's go ahead and we'll just tack this off. So the thread that I'm using today is still the 40 weight. It is pretty heavy. So whenever we're doing micro quilting, like this is kind of fine line work, I think it is good if you have maybe something lighter than what I did. So I looked to see if I had maybe a 60 weight that was kind of somewhere in this color range that I could put in here that wouldn't bulk up quite as much, but I just didn't have it. So time to go shopping. Let's cut these threads. And then we can probably do this one. This one I think would be pretty easy to do. So right here, we're going to try to compress right up to the line as much as possible. So when I'm using the ruler foot, that's something that I really have to kind of watch for. So the foot is going to extend over the line a little bit, and that's going to be the guide. So you'll start in the corner, and I'll come up just enough so I can make the first few stitches. So let's kind of point that out. So the needle will start here just for convenience, because that's our travel point between each of these. As I come down here, I'm going to go to the corner, come up, and then I'll start this undulation right there. These I tend to use the ruler foot spacing to make my curve, but these are a little tighter, so you'll see we'll kind of have to adjust and see. I don't know if I want such a big space, but that's close to a 1/4 inch. So as I'm going up and down, I'm going to cross over with the foot on this side, cross over with the foot each time. And that's going to get this stitch line close to the existing line. And then right here, I'll use my ruler to echo that so that then I can have a little bit of puffy punch, because this is going to punch that down. And that's why this echo right here is powerful, because this will be all punched down in here. This will give a little puff, and then this will just change that. So this boundary right here will emphasize this shape right here, plus it gives the little punch for this if we have this really tight. Okay, let's do that. All right, let's see. Any questions so far? How are we doing? Okay, let's get started. So we plan to go all the way around, so I'll probably just tack it at the end. We are going to travel right up a little bit, as I said, on this curve right here, and I am just free motioning it a little to get up. I think I want to kind of start with that first bit of this curve, and I kind of want to keep them a little bit straight. So let's go ahead and we'll just start working on that. So here I'm coming up a little bit. So I'm looking in there to make sure my stitching is kind of tight. Now I'm going to make a really tall one right there. Crossing over a little bit. So I'm up on the curve. I need to come down to the corner because I'm on the right side and come back up a little bit on the left side. So I always need a little bit of room. I think it's really hard to come out of that corner and make an appropriate curve like this. Let's get you guys up a little closer. So when we were done here, we came down to the corner and back up, and now we can start with our little undulation. I think when you're right there, you got to move away from there a little bit so that you can start. I think it's really hard when you start right in the corner. So this is fingertip movements. Coming up, trying to fill that right there. I don't want to cross over, but I want to get kind of close to the seam, because otherwise we'll have a little bit of puffiness right near the seam, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So I'm at the bottom, so I'm just going to cross over to the corner, and I'll come up. You know, wherever we end, that's where we end. So here we go, same thing. Have a nice, easy rhythm. If your needle's going so slow, I think it kind of prevents the sandwich from moving. So a little bit of speed that's nice and even, that's really good. Oh, that's too much. Slow down. Okay, and I'm right in that top curve. So I'll just come down and we'll cross over a little bit. Let's see where we are. Oh, almost went outside, right? Did you see that? I need to be up there. Make sure you know where you're going. Okay, bonbon time. Just pick up our needle. We're just going to move back to where we need to be. I went up the wrong curve. It happens. I'll just hold this thread so it can stitch off, and I'm going to tack right here. Get those stitches nice and tacked in. Come up my curve. Okay, and now we can just start going this way. So you can see the foot's crossing over those seam lines. I'm up in the top curve, and I learned my lesson. So when I come down here, I'm going to make sure that I'm going the right way to get up this other curve. And this is kind of what we're getting. And what we'll do is it's got a lot of lines and messiness. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn it over after we get a little further along so that we can show you how it looks without all those markings. Coming up to that peak, filling it in, crossing over a little bit. I'm leaning over the camera. Oh, I can see like 1 inch between the machine and the camera. All right, so again, we got to make sure we're going up the right curve. So we'll come up this way a little bit, maybe about 4 stitches, just giving the foot a little bit of room right there. And then here, this way you can see a little better. Get my rhythm going. I'm using my fingertips. And if you feel like you can draw that in and that helps you, you should try that. There's no rule about that. If you feel like you need that, I've drawn in lots of times, and I don't feel like I'm a slave to what I've drawn in, but I sometimes feel like it kind of gives me maybe a start to get me on track so that I have this orientation correct. So you can always use that as well if that's something that's helpful to you. And then we'll just come up. So if I go faster, I need to respond faster. So I'm just going to kind of give myself a little bit more rhythm here. Crossing over. Okay, and then let's see. I think we have one more. We'll just do the last one, and that'll kind of get us to our stop point for the day. And what we're going to do is we'll keep working on this piece. So if you have fun and fancy, you can kind of make these shapes and practice them. So here I'm going to shorten that because I want to get a little tall one in there. So I made that one skinnier because it wasn't right in the center there. Okay, and we're right here where we started. So we'll do those tacking stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With the polyester thread, I always like to do at least 5 micro stitches. And it's okay that we have some thread build up there in the corners because we have it on each one. So it'll look pretty much the same. All right, let's cut that. Get all of these lines off of here, all these threads. I love it, you guys. It looks so cool. That's our bonbon time. We'll have to fix that later, but I'll just cut it for now just to get it out of the way. We'll have that same thread on the back as well. And then let's not macro it now. Let's move out a little bit so you can kind of get a little wider view. Because remember, you know, we don't let people put their nose on our quilt, right? They need to back up. So there you go. So we're starting to kind of develop that bi-level look. So these are a little bit tight, which is why these little open areas are going to be so important. And then what we can do is we can always come back in with a black thread as well and do some fine tuning. If we have, say, like some area isn't punched down and we want it to not stick out right here, but we don't want to add color, we can come and put a little invisible line of black right in there, kind of right next to this line, and that'll punch this down and give the impression that all this is recessed so that this can pop better. So there's always little ways to kind of fix it if you feel like it's not giving you what you want. So let's flip it over. Oh wait, I'm checking it. Just kidding. Now, I did use something a little bit more subtle on the back, and this is that 100-weight thread. So this is Invisifil. I don't have that spool. I couldn't find it. That's the one I was looking for. But you can see that the density of this thread is much softer than this. Right here with that single line, look at how faint that is. And it's just a lot softer. So if you're afraid to go whole hog 40-weight thread, you can always choose something that is a little bit thinner and it's just going to be a little bit softer so that you won't have as much presence. The thread doesn't have as much presence. And if you have a busy back, I do really like to use the lighter weight thread because then it doesn't bulk up the thread on the back, which is really great. So let's go ahead. Let's look for some questions, see if we have any. I love that puff. That was from Linda Martindale, was saying that she likes that. I mean, I think we all like that. I think that's one of the things that draws people to quilting. When you just see a top and then you see how it looks quilted, it matters. It makes such a big difference, and it creates that texture that we love so much. And I think that's some of the fun things that we are always trying to go. I know it looks super fancy, doesn't it, JD? I love it. So, and again, you know, you guys saw every little thing, every little bobble, every little mistake. It's all in there for you. But this is just something that we can do, and it creates a lot more visual interest and makes it more exciting. And once we put these echoes in here too, you'll see that we'll get even more value out of that, because we're kind of creating those different layers. And the order would be, you're going to do all your outline quilting like we've done. So this is sort of I colored the lines with the thread. And now we're doing what I consider to be, this is a medium density quilting right here. This is a little tight, but this is definitely medium right here. And then what we'll do after that is we may fill in even more with something that is a little tighter in certain areas to really create that pop. So that's our time for today. We're at 10:36. We're trying to keep these short so people can view them quickly, but I'm a little too talkative. Once I get started, I just start quilting away. All right, and Susan, thank you so much. I'm glad you liked it. She said good ideas. I enjoy my fun and fancy. I'm glad you guys too. And I love sharing Friday mornings. I kind of feel like, you know, so much of our Sew Steady time is amazing, and that's how I've really started connecting with people virtually. But I know that we want to do a lot of different things, and that is sort of product driven, and this way we can kind of have just more relaxed, friendly feel and drink your coffee. Yeah, so Rita was mentioning that she wants to get some lighter weight thread. So let me see if I can grab a couple of things. And I'll just put them out here. Let's see if we have. We'll just kind of do it on the end here where this black is. This, that's 40 weight, right? Both of these are. One's variegated and one isn't. And then I'm just going to grab one more thing. And in fact, let's see, these colors are real similar, so let's use that for a comparison. That'll help us not be distracted by color. That is the difference. This bobbin is 80 weight, and this is 40 weight right there. So let's see if we can get you in a little tight. And then I'm going to stop talking. Right? So really a big difference in the thread. I think that it's hard to see, but this one is so much finer. If I go around pebbles a bunch of times, this will hide and this will really not, because this is almost double the dimension of this thread. Let's see if we'll pick them up and bring them a little closer to you. Can you see how fine that is right there? So fine. And like this one, he has a lot more body, right? That's up close. You can really tell the difference. So these lighter weight threads are really great when you're kind of doing that staged quilting. I really recommend it. So the middle of the road is 50-60, and then the really lightweight for really fine quilting is 80 to 100. And they have silk, which is a little more expensive. Wonderful has a lot of great polys in that, and I think Superior has micro quilter, which is also 100 weight, and that's poly. So, you know, just start with a couple of those. If you have a lot of the same background that you use for some things like white or cream or black, maybe get those in the lighter weight thread so you can sort of fill in those background areas, because that's a lot of what we have. We usually have white or black or some type of neutral as that backing fabric, and that would be just an opportunity to play with some of those threads and see how they work. So, alrighty, you guys, well, that's it for Friday. What brand of, let's see if I can see that. Oh, what brand of chalk? Okay, I'll answer that. This chalk pen, this is Bohin, B-O-H-I-N, and it's fat. I like it because it comes off really easy, but it stays on if you want it to. Like I could just brush it off, but it'll stay on. I really like the ceramic chalk because this is a fine mark. If I want precision, I want something that's really fine like this. This one doesn't come off as easily, but it does come off. So let's see if we had a, like this is the boheen chalk, but this skinny line right there is a grid mark right there. So I can literally take that and just erase it. But you know, if you're doing a really big quilt, I mean, that would be painful to erase the whole quilt, right? So I try to limit what I can, but I do grid a lot. And if I'm gonna do a lot of gridding, I really like to use the iron off chalk, and that's what I've got in here. This is Hansi iron off chalk powder. You can also use Miracle chalk, which is a similar product. I think it's something like zinc oxide, and when you heat it, when you put the hot iron on it, it literally evaporates the chalk and then it literally goes away. So if you're marking large areas, you want something that's easy to remove, but sometimes you just really need that fine line marker, and so there's no substitute. These all kind of have different things. Because this is a dressmaker wheel and it dispenses chalk throughout this, that's a really wide thing, and if you're trying to control a curve, that is not the best with the Choco liner. It doesn't work as well if you're trying to do a curvy line. Gentle curve, yes, but not something that's really deep. So these all have different features. And then if I'm doing something that is a lighter weight color, I really like to use something like the Styla rollerball pen, and they have those with the blue marking and the air erase. And I really like the air erase. It mostly works. I've only had it fail once, and you rarely ever have to do anything to get it off. Just leave it out and it'll go away. So those are my marking tools that I like a lot. Okay, you guys, thanks. So let's see. I keep saying I'm going to check the questions. Remember, start with something no fear, you know. If you have some practice piece that you have, then start making a plan to quilt the tar out of it and just use it like a little end table cover or something. You could just put a decorative binding on it and put your lamp over it. And that way it's useful and fun and there's no pressure because you're giving it to yourself. Okay. All right. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. I won't keep you hanging on the line. I'll go ahead and say goodbye, and if there's more questions, I'll answer them in the chat. So if you have a question that didn't get answered, you can put it in there. I'll go back and I'll answer it. And have a wonderful day. This Sunday, I'm going to be introducing my Feather Fantasy Sampler project. And this is a quilt as you go using the Westerly feathers and a few other templates. And it's going to be coming up March 17th. And so if you wanted to participate in that, it doesn't have a giant fabric requirement. It is, you know, more to get the technique down. So it's not really fabric heavy or anything like that. You can do it with scrap if you wanted. But it's got some of the big feather ideas that I've shown in the past using the template. So if you're a template person and you'd like to see that, we'll be kind of offering the sneak peek, and then the class will be on the 17th, and that will be a class with the pattern that you will need to sign up for that does have a minimal fee. So if you're interested in that, check in on Sunday and we'll give you more information about that. Okay, thanks guys. Have a great day. Happy quilting. Bye-bye.